Hi, welcome to Andrew Buckle book review of the Scrapbooks. Don't know what we can call it really. Wartime, 1960s, 1970s, as well as the 1950s Scrapbooks. And they're all from Robert Opie. Now, they're all absolutely huge books. They really weigh a ton, actually. I haven't got them all. There's actually about 5-10 other ones. There's quite a lot. You can see the list there. Victorian, Edwardian, 1910, loads of them. 1920s, 30s. Weirdly, no 1940s one. Obviously, it's got wartime, but there were a few more years obviously that could have been included. Also, Royal Scrapbook, 1970s, 1960s. White finishes in the 1970s. I would love to see a 1980s one. That would be brilliant. But still, let's go through them individually. They're all very similar, obviously, style. They go through all the various sweets, the various foods, the various things like newspapers, all those sort of record things, and everything always changed. And of course, probably less so maybe the wartime scrapbook, those sort of things. But still, it's got lots and lots of examples. And that's what this book is. It's got like about 1,000 items. I didn't count them all. There might be 999. There might be 1,100. But there's certainly a lot. And it's just full of all these sort of music sheets. Obviously, what would people do? Obviously, singing songs, as well as Meet Me in the Blackout Sweetheart. And also Women's Own magazine and the Women magazine. And, of course, many, many others. And also the chocolates. I love those ones. Obviously, all wasn't obviously around in the war. Oliver Twist, I've never heard of that one. Terry's chocolate there, milk sandwich. You've got, and I love going through these ones. You look at Dairy Box, and I remember quite a few of these sort of things. Coffee creams, those sort of things should be around now. And actually, when you go abroad, quite often, like in France or Spain, you find these things. You think, oh, that's really quite. Obviously, you can find them in some of the more upmarket shops, but some of these, like the Dairy Box one, I always miss those. Of course, all sort of got long gone. Almond crispy cluster. Now that looks a real good crispy cluster, if I can even say it. Aero. They've got an Aero one. But still, Quality Street and the Quality Street. I mean, that was a lovely, look at that box. That was just glorious. They never produce something like that now. They should, but they haven't. Do your duty, send us greeting cards. All those sort of things. I just love this book. Let's Go, Wings for Victory. And then you've got the Picture Go, the Radio Times. Of course, some of these magazines, they probably were less distributed to time, probably thinner as well. But often when you look at some of the old, you get like the Beanos and things, they were a bit thinner, obviously. Paper and things. And you got Tiny Tots and you got Champion. Now, you can still pick up these sort of ones, Triumph magazines. And actually, quite a lot of these ones are relatively reasonably affordable. If you find them, certain dealers, comic marts, I've seen piles of these sort of things, Rainbow and things, you can pick them up for £3 or £4. Some probably more, some less. And also newspapers, of course. So that's a 1940s, or I should say, the wartime one. And let's see if I've got the right one. Next one. 1950s scrapbook. This is getting more my time. Not exactly, but certainly. A lot of the things in this, though, I actually recall. Because a lot of these things were in my house. And when I would go and visit my nan or my nans, they would have these sort of things around. A lot of this stuff was still the wallpapers. I mean, remember a lot of that style just didn't get removed. I mean, why would it? But you had all these sort of like, do it yourself. Obviously, people were doing all the rest decorating. But I mean, obviously, the wallpaper did sort of remain. You see that sort of style of wallpaper for long. And I love these sort of things, these adverts there. Oh, sorry, the various products that obviously, adverts. Bream fillets. I mean, wow. Flounder fillets. Many of them I've never heard of. Obviously, that's an advert. That's what I meant. But this one here, cream, daily to your door, double express cream. Salesman will deliver, which is pretty good. Whiteway, I mean, that sounds terrible product. I mean, obviously it isn't, but what a weird name. Would you buy that? Whiteway side racks. I mean, I'm certain it was a great product. Pier racks. Doesn't sort of roll off the tongue. Would you buy a product? Drax. Sounds more like a, I don't know. Anyway. And then you got obviously cleaning products, Tide, Omo, Daz, and all those sort of ones. And then you got various nylon dress overalls and the various raincoats, and also the toys, of course. And again, all these sort of things, all these lovely toys. This one, supersonic gun. I remember seeing all those sort of things. Often I would just go around, well, I say my nans, and they would have all the toys and things. And I remember doing like jigsaw puzzles, the space projector with Dan Dare, walkie-talkies, and then all that sort of stuff. It was all sort of still, I mean, it's only 10 years, 15 years. And so there was sort of, and the dinky toys, of course, all those sort of things. Of course, some people collected them, carefully kept them, but I didn't. I completely demolished. I got lots of the old sort of the dinky toys and the various corgis, whatever, those sort of things. and they were bashed to within an inch of their lives. God, I never thought about, oh, no, I must collect them. Turn around to my mum and dad say, don't! That Fantastic Four #1. Don't, no, that's got to go in a mile bag. Those sort of things. Broadstairs. I loved that, Broadstairs. Absolutely. I had some great holidays. All Hastings, all that sort of. I never went to Blackpool. Should have done. 1951, 57, and so on. Obviously, Elvis Presley, all the top 10. All this great, wonderful. So that's into now. Let's see if I'm going to pick up the 60s. Yes, I've got the 60s next. It's good. Now, this is I'd say my time, because I don't remember as vast amounts of it. I mean, I remember bits. I remember mainly comics more than anything, as well as Gypsy Tart School and those sort of things. That was a Kentish, lovely Kent, unhealthy beyond the limits of probably the most sugary you could imagine. Still, space operas, I remember all those sort of ones. I love that. You got Nescafe, you got loads of, obviously, Diana Ross, those records. The Motown ones, just brilliant. But a lot of this music, and obviously Bob Dylan album, got that one. Ronettes, they were just great. And of course, like I say, copies were around still. I mean, in the 70s, I was picking up lots of these things. And I remember going to markets. You go around markets and a lot of all this stuff would be dumped. Dumped anything like next to nothing. Now, of course, it's immensely collectible. But all these sort of things, the sort of things you would see literally just dumped. And why not? It was only about 4 or 5 years before, 10 years before, people get rid of it. And these sort of things, Frosties, of course, nowadays, and also Pop-Tarts, quite amazing Pop-Tarts. You look at it in Pop-Tarts, and I'm not going to show all the pictures of all these, of course, go through every one. Puff Cracknell. Look, don't remember that. Ritz Crackers, I love Ritz Crackers. And I love there's a programme on the moment on Channel 5, the 1970s supermarket. And I always love it when people turn around and say, like Spam fritters or things, and they say, but they're still around. You can still make a Spam fritter, of course. They had someone on there, Rusty. She was making. I was thinking, really? Like Angel Delight, all these sort of things, lots of stuff from the 1970s, 1960s still exists. You can find it in shops. Not all. There are lots of sweets and lots of things I remember from lots of the ice creams. And they've got ice creams in here as well. And I'm probably just going to go, yeah, these sort of things. So you've got all the various ice creams and also sweet cigarettes. Of course, they're not called that now. I can't remember what they're called now. Candy sticks or something. They probably changed the name for that, which is nothing wrong. That's the way the world works. So Skyray, Orbit, Zoom, Jumbo, Fab. I remember, and again, of course, not the sort of thing I'm thinking, I must collect. Hopscotch, I remember those ones. Zoom, Heart. I love Heart. That one was always a favourite. Top 10. That was a good one. What was that one? Frozen. I love frozen confection. Hopscotch, butterscotch flavour. Absolutely yummy. Raspberry fruit, weirdly spelled F-R-U-T-E. Lion's Made. Now I remember Lion's Made Wolves. There was always, of course, that conflict there. Well, they were the main ones back then. And you've also got, of course, the eye, various things. Obviously, not something I would know, but toothpaste. Those things. Oh, I remember the Signal, of course, McLean's. McLean's? Don't know. Freeze, I remember that one. Men to Sell. Obviously, the Barbie, and of course, at the moment, of course, with the film Barbie, you've got the Cindy's, you of course got Toots. Don't remember Toots at all. But these are just brilliant. And all the magazines, of course, Titbits, and I love Titbits. My nan would always bring that up. I always remember we'd have a load of sweets, and she would bring up piles of magazines, and it had Nova, Annabelle, Slimming Magazine. I think she never brought that one up. Queen, Weekend. I remember Weekend. They would just come off it, Jane, obviously. That's Jane Fonda there. Private Eye. I don't think she ever brought Private Eye up. That would have been very odd. But top 10, all the various Kathy Kirby, New Seekers, that was in the 70s. The Seekers, of course, Jake the Peg, I mentioned about. And of course, The Who, Pink Floyd. I had loads of those albums. I absolutely love, and especially obviously the Rolling Stones. I've got quite a few of them still. Occasionally I think about doing maybe a video, going through some of my CDs and records. I don't know. I'm not certain anyone would be interested looking at those or talking about them. Maybe. That's a possible, but still, Radio Times. I love the Radio Times. I mean, I watched way too much TV. I still watch way too much TV, but hopefully I'm more selective now. Probably not. But still, I just watched any rubbish that was put on, as well as reading 5 million books as well. I think I must have been reading at the same time as watching on TV. You sort of sit on the floor, and I remember just going through magazines, books and whatever, TV was just literally on all the time. I don't remember that. James Bond 007 action figure. I mean, wow. Goldfinger one. Oh, no, Odd Job. Didn't do the Goldfinger one. Surprising that. Live and Let Die. I love all those. And again, all the tours, all the games and things. I didn't get any of those games. Never Action Man. I had Action Man. Scale Electric. I had loads. Oh, some of these ones. The Larkins. Danger Man. Remember that. Those sort of things. And all the Man from U.N.C.L.E. But also, these books are just full of. Literally, it's got the comics as well. I'm going to search. But it's also got magazines, comics, annuals. So you've got all the annuals as well. I had loads of these. The Avengers annual, Man from U.N.C.L.E. annual. And of course, all the football. Of course, sadly, we lost. They were better than us, so I guess. But it still could have been. Only another 61, or whatever it is, odd years to go before. We might win eventually. Be positive. I don't know. I still live in hope. But it's not the end of the world, is it? It is. Of course it is. 1970s scrapbook. This is more my time. Came into 1970. Now, they bought a 1980s one. I don't know if I would feel remotely nostalgic about 1980s one particularly. I mean, I like the 1980s, and I remember, lots of... But I was more busy getting on with my sort of work life and obviously university and all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't sort of like... whereas the 1970s was, of course, a time when I spent loads of time listening to records, many hours reading... vast amounts of books. I would love to, obviously, this book, just as a snapshot of time, obviously, all the Sex Pistols. Sex Pistols, I went to see The Clash and all those sort of bands, X-Ray Specs. Would have loved to have seen Sex Pistols. Never saw Sex Pistols. Never saw Damned. That would have been great. But Stiff Little Fingers, all those sort of bands, just brilliant. Loved that period. Buzzcocks, of course, great. But still, you had all the bikes and things. Oh, of course, we went decimal at that point, so there was a whole load of decimal things. I thought it was really a bit over the top, the way they went with that decimal. I mean, it was a big change, going from obviously 20 shillings, to a pound and that sort of stuff. But still, I just thought it was just done in such an odd way. But Habitat catalogues. Actually, I was looking online. I've got loads of these magazines. I love Ideal Home. I love Home and Gardens, all those house and gardens. I think they're some of the best documents of that period. Far more than, if you buy some lovely books just coming out. Name's got from me. David Keiston. He's, I think it's 1962 to 65. I'm looking forward to that book. The Northern Wind or something, Northern Change or something like that. Anyway, those sort of books are great, but I do love the books of the period as well. The Ideal Home, all the sort of magazines of that period, because you just read the articles as they were, obviously it was happening, and obviously they've got a different view of it. Obviously not with the historical context, they're not putting this, but it's just a snapshot of what was that moment, like we get now, of course. And you got all the various things, cottage cheese, crispy pancakes. Now, that's what I was saying about the 1970s supermarket programme on Channel 5. I'm not advertising it, but I thoroughly enjoy watching it. I'm looking forward to tonight's one as well. Can't wait to see what they're going to show on that. Just fascinating, those sort of ones. I just love those sort of shows. Wish they'd put more. A 1960s supermarket one, I would enjoy. 1980s. Home Pride Plain Flour. I remember having that one as well, one of those. Had loads of those ones. I think they're collectible as well now, properly. You can't keep everything. What could you do? If you kept everything, the houses would be... You just wouldn't move. But all the Sunfresh and things, and the Treetop, I remember Treetop. I suppose a lot of people... It had a slightly weird, sort of very futuristic, to me, Quash. Remember Quash? Lemon Barley Water. Again, all terrible. What can you do? You can't rewrite the past. Now, no. But then, that was right. But also you've got crisps, of course. And also cigarettes. I always remember going around getting the cigarettes from my parents. Actually, I was surprised. There was one that I saw today, and one of the adverts, and I thought, unbelievable. The company that did it, I thought, that's very strange. But I remember loads of these ones. Which one did I have? I've never smoked. So I've done Benson Hedges. I know I also used to get that, but there was one of them, John Pliers, Virginia Red, Embassy. Amazing amounts people smoked, all those things. But all the style, these sort of things, they're lovely as well. All the shoes of the period, the magazines, of course. You got all there. Jackie, of course, Mirabelle, Melanie, Valentine, Pink. You got the Supersonic magazine, Bay City Rollers. Of course, we had all these lovely, these ones. You got these sort of they were smallish. I remember there was like Rolling Stones one, of course, previous decade. And you had the Monkeys one as well. And I suspect other ones. There was Starsky and Hutch one. I'm quite certain. Probably was a Kojak one as well. I can't remember. But there was Bay City Rollers. I remember the Bay City Rollers. I love those. Those little magazines. I expect that you can pick them up now. Probably reasonably expensive. Band on the Run, all the albums, Eric Clapton, of course, Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers. Of course, they're supposedly bringing out a new album, apparently advertised in a weird way. I can't remember, it was the Hackney Diamonds or something it was mentioned. And I thought, fascinating. What a way of doing it, I suppose, build up a bit of suddenly punk, Anarchy in the UK. I had all these magazines. Used to be a shop in Croydon, and I can't remember the bookshop's name. It was in the shopping centre there. And I would always go there. It was just with my parents, and they'd go off and I'd go to the book, and there was like millions of these magazines, Ripped and Torn, and all the Sniffing Glue magazines and things. There were loads of them. I bought every single one of them. I loved them. I didn't keep any of them. I look back and and I actually created a number of my own as well. And sadly, I haven't got any copies of those either, but I wish I had. But that's life. Clash. I remember that one Outrage. Sniffing Glue. That's all one, Outrage. And all the Marxist bulletins, all these I remember the shop, it had millions of those sort of magazines. Mexico 70 Tiger magazines. I was obsessed with football, so I loved George Best Soccer Annual. Don't remember that. Scorcher. Loved Scorcher. Scorcher was one of my favourites. Shoot. Used to get that all the time. I think if it was Scorcher or one of them, you could get the little tabs you put in for the football and put it up down as it goes. What a waste of time. But still, that's what we did. Highway Code. I remember spending hours reading the Highway Code. Never got a car, though. Anyway, that's one of those things you do. Always loved those cars. And we actually loved seeing adverts of cars that period, even though I haven't never had a car. 1972, got various, obviously, holidays and things, and all the Radio Times. Remember every single one of these Radio Times. Used to get Radio Times mainly because, of course, at that time, my mum was working in a newsagent's, and so there were piles and piles, all these sort of things, and I'd always be going. So I can't remember if we bought them. Sometimes we probably did. Probably most of the time I just read them in the shop. So I remember every single one of these issues. And of course, all the magazines that we had then. We had Action. I remember that. Cheeky. Spellbound. I love Spellbound. Sadly, didn't last very long. Tammy, Pixie, Sandy, Cracked. Cracker? Was it Cracker? Might have been Cracker. Toby, obviously, Warlord. Toy Town. I remember that one. Countdown. I remember Countdown. Weird how many, when you look through this, how many are all girls' comics. But you got Plug, and obviously you got Cheeky, Misty. Misty was some of the classics. They're, of course, bringing out a new volume, massive big 45-year special, something, volume of that. Seesaw, Crazy, Fury. Remember that one. Didn't buy many issues, which is weird because I wasn't into Sergeant Fury at the time. And Sergeant Fury, of course, now I love Sergeant Fury, but at the time I looked at, don't like those war comics. And so I was never into that sort of stuff. Because, of course, the time you had, in the UK, we had like all these magazines, the Commando, all the various Air Force Library, whatever it was, magazines, and I had loads of those. And I just got to the point where I really wasn't really that interested in that sort of stuff. Like Westerns. Westerns never really appealed to me either. Now I love them, which is weird, isn't it? But you got Planet of the Apes and all the annuals. Logan's Run. I wish I'd get a copy of that sometime. Charlie's Angels, Space 1999. I love that one. $6 Million Man. I'm obviously mentioning all these things. Please put in the comments below. Did you get any of these annuals? Did you get Battlestar Galactica annual? All the comics and things, all the various... Have you got these books? Do you intend to get any of these books? I mean, I think they're absolutely brilliant. And then you got Plunk, and you've also got Space 1999, and all the posters. And I love their Sugar Smacks. And also of course, the film posters as well. Lots of great films in the 70s. I mean, some of these, I think I've seen every single one of these. Patton, Under the Milk Wood, Exorcist, Railway Children. Thousands of times you've seen that, been on all the time. Poseidon Adventure, I like that one. Up Pompeii, doesn't come on that often, but it's okay. Father, Dear Father, maybe not so much. Probably been on. Legend of the Werewolf, probably seen it, can't remember it. Last Tango in Paris, I remember seeing that. The Sting, and some of the films I saw, I remember going to the cinema, and you look at it and think, I wonder why I went to cinema when some of these are clearly, obviously, for someone slightly older than I was. Did anyone worry about it back then? I don't know, they must have done, but thing weird when I think I did go and see a lot of these. I mean, I'm still remembering, I mentioned before, 2001. Going to see 2001. I went to see it in 1968 or whatever it was. And it was, you think, why? What a weird film to go and see. I mean, I got dragged to things like Custer and things. That was about 1965 or so, that period. Monty Python, Holy Grail, Cylon Attack, and so on. These books are just great. You can actually spend hours and hours and hours just going, and you probably, when you go through it, you'll come back to it again and you'll see, you'll just suddenly see something else. And that's the thing I like about these books. I think it's quite often, and I often just pick them up and I will just, it's not sort of a regular read sort of thing, but it's one of those ones you just pick up, you've got 10, 20 minutes, you'll just go through it and think, I remember that or this. I wonder what happened to that toy or whatever, or what happened to this sort of radio-controlled Jaguar XJS. I never had one, but it could have done. Frustration. All my friends had those ones. That's always the thing, isn't it? You look back and think, I never had one. Why didn't I have one of those? Sadly, I didn't. I'd always get books or something. Oh, well. That's life. But still, I absolutely love these books and I really recommend them. I think these are just some of the best. The only criticism I would say, why haven't they brought out some updated ones? I would love to see, 150 page, bigger, better, even more, maybe more, obviously more expensive, but still even better ones. There surely there must be a lot more material available now to bring out some new volumes. Why still bringing out these ones? I'd love to see some new updated ones because it's just, I'd buy it. If they brought out 1960s Scrapbook Plus or whatever it would be called, updated, I would definitely be there buying that book. I think it's a great book, as well as 1970s one, more so than the 1950s and obviously the wartime one that I'm not so familiar with, of course. But anyway, have you got them? Will you be buying them? Which periods would you like? Are you fascinated by 1920s? If you're into the 1920s, 1930s, those sort of books, again, are absolutely brilliant. And that's the thing about it. It just shows so much material of that time. And it's just fascinating. Now, obviously, it doesn't capture everything. It's not like a thick 1,000-page book or the original source material. Obviously, that is still source material. But, original magazines that describe all that period. Obviously isn't that, but it's still a visual guide that I just find absolutely fascinating. And as I say, lots of obviously TV programmes now having sort of that same sort of material. One day, I think there is a museum, isn't there? I must go and visit that museum. I'd love to see it. Anyway, hope you found this of interest. Bye.